Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I will explain to you how to make our floral crossbody bag from ZARA. It is a really useful and beautiful model. It is so easy and enjoyable to make that I am sure that even those who are new to knitting can knit and prepare it very easily. I used a total of 110 grams of yarn. I tried to share it with you in detail step by step during the production process. I hope it will be useful. Let's move on to the recipe. I will use imported Raffia from my bag. I want to show its texture closely. It has a hard texture. My number is 4 millimeters. You can determine your crochet number according to the thinness and thickness of your yarn, the tightness and looseness of your knitting. You can easily make this type of bag not only with shelf rope, but also with paper rope and macrame rope. Our model is quite simple. Here you see a rectangular piece. I will immediately share with you how we knit this piece. To describe our piece, I will use jibonuk to make it easier. We leave some thread for sewing at the beginning. I will have 6 millimeters according to my crochet number. We first start by pulling a chain. If there are beginners among us, I have previously shared a detailed video on how to make a chain and how to knit single crochet. I will add the link to the description section of our video. You can access it by clicking there. After locking the first chain in this way, I prepared my knitting by making 21 chains in total. Now we are pulling our chains as per our discretion. We do not pull the initial chains too tightly. We prepare our chains so that they are a little looser than the setting we knitted. This is true for every knit. This is how I prepared our chains. I drew a total of 21 chains in this piece. I prepared it by knitting 20 tight needles. I lengthened my knitting until it was 48 centimeters long. It was 15 centimeters wide. Now how do we knit here? We pulled our chains. We leave the last chain here. Look, the front part of our chain looks like this. When we turn the back part, there are dashed lines. Now we leave this last chain. We sink into the cut line at the back of the next chain. We made a loop. We have 2 loops. We knitted single needle. Look again at the dashed line of the next chain. Here's the front, here's the back. There are dashed lines. We sink into this line and make a loop. We knit single needle. Our bag consists entirely of single needle. In this way, by sinking once into each chain, we knit single needle. Let's knit 2, 4, 5 enough stitches. Let's not knit the rest. We continue knitting like this until the last point. Then we stretch our stitch slightly and turn our knitting. We will sink into the first space that comes up. Since we did not draw a chain, we will sink into the first space. We remove the stitch. We have 2 stitches. We knit the next chain. We are sinking into the needle point. We remove the stitch. Single needle again. Look. We are knitting single needle in this way by sinking the single needles into the gaps. At the last point, we sink into this point and knit single needles again. We stretch our knitting stitch slightly and turn it directly. We knit single needles by sinking into the first space that comes to mind. In this way, we knit our single needles. We will complete our knitting. Let me share with you how I stumbled upon the last point. We sink to this point, we lengthen our stitch and knit single crochet. We stretch the stitch again slightly. We sink into the first gap and start the next row by knitting single crochet. Look, the edges are quite neat and smooth. There is no gap since we do not draw a chain. It gives such a beautiful appearance. I said it was completely single crochet technique. Now this is the way it is. I knitted and prepared my piece until it was 15 centimeters wide and 48 centimeters long. Now we will fold this piece like this. Now we give the form of our bag. The cover is like this. You can enlarge or reduce its dimensions as you wish, as much as you want. This can also be prepared as a phone case. It can also be used as a phone case rather than a crossbody bag. We close it like this. After giving this shape, my Raffia rope was already hard. When I pressed it like this, it took its shape immediately. It is also worth saying this. When working with Raffia thread or paper thread, be sure to iron by hand so that there is no need for an iron later. Your knitting looks like a pattern. After knitting a few rows in each row, let's flatten it by pressing it with our hands. Or after we finish knitting, let's take a flat surface and make sure our knitting sits well with our hands. Now we closed our knitting like this. What are we going to do? Now we will combine the edge parts first. We will combine them at the points we determined here. To determine, I immediately take my safety pin and determine the points where I will stitch. After determining the points I will sew, I take the thread I left here at the beginning. I will sew it with a sewing needle like this. I immediately put on my rope. Look, by passing my rope through the first points I looked at here, like this, I'm doing my sewing. Since I have threaded my rope, I immediately take out my safety pin. In this way, we sew like we sew anything. Now we have completed our bag by sewing the edges. Now we will sew and complete the mouth part here. I left my rope here. Here, after the last single crochet, I make a chain like this. After one chain, I cut my rope enough and remove it from my loop. We will hide this short string later. Now I'm starting from this corner. Look, we will sink from the first space, immediately coming to the last joining point, and turn this cover part with a row of single needles. I drew a chain here. I immediately knit a single crochet in the same space. I sink into the next void. I proceed with one single crochet in each row. In this way, we also hide the short rope that sinks. Since my yarn is hard, I make sure to flatten it with my hand and knit my single needle, one for each row. Now I will make a turn here. The row is over. I sink into the single needle space. I knit a single needle into the top space. I'm knitting at this point. We've made a turn here. Then I continue knitting with single needles, sinking into the top spaces of the incoming single needles. See? Here we started knitting 2 single crochets. Now we will proceed by knitting 1 single crochet in each single crochet space. If this point is closed so much, you can knit 3 single crochets. But when I look at the shelf, I look at it very easily. It stands straight. There's no need for 3. Now I'm going to knit 1 single crochet in each and come to the corner. I knit 2 single crochets in the corner. Then knit 1 single crochet in the gaps here and knit 1 in each row. I will finish at the end of the row. I proceeded by knitting 2 double crochets in the corner here. I am crocheting the last blank here. I will not make a chain here. Since my yarn is thick, I will cut my yarn a little bit like this. I will directly remove the remaining rope from my loop and hide it by passing it through the appropriate gaps. We completed the cover part by knitting in this way. Now let's look at the image. Let's definitely make a provincial song. I will proceed by straightening our knitting. Now I want to embroider them. After doing the embroidery first, we will move on to making the lock and cup part. Subtitle MK. Subtitle MK. I made and prepared such daisies in our bag with white and home project shelf ropes. Now we will move on to making the button part. For this, I create a magic ring like this. If there are beginners among us, I have previously shared a detailed video on how to make a magic ring. I will add it to the description section of our video. You can access it by clicking there. We created our magic ring like this. By the way, I have a needle, but it is not 4, it is 3.5 needles. Now, since I will be making a button, I need a circle with a slightly smaller number. I am drawing a chain here. I made a single needle by sinking in the magic ring. I knit 6 single needles, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. After knitting 6 single needles, I pull my remaining short rope from the magic ring to the point where I can pull it and make this middle part smaller. Then, I insert the first single crochet here into the headspace of the first single crochet after the chain. I remove the loop from here and slide it through the other loop. Look, we have a button in the first row from where, stay tight. I achieved this form because my thread is hard and thick, but if you are using a softer shelf thread or paper thread, 6 single crochet stitches will not be enough for you. What are we going to do? You will turn it into a button like this by sinking directly into the magic ring and knitting single needles over the single needles again without any shifting here. I've shared how to make buttons before. Again, I will add that video to the description section. You can look from there. Now after shifting here, we will cut our rope sufficiently. We will remove it from our loop. My rope is quite stiff. It immediately took the form of a button. But if the shelf you use is soft and soft, you may not be able to achieve this form as I said. Maybe a few more rows above it, that is, it will sink into it and be directly on top of it. It will be knitted with 6 single crochet stitches without any increase and will be collected like this. If you do not want to use knitted buttons, ready-made buttons can be used, or different devices can be used. But I'm trying to make it close to the original. Now here's one of these ropes, one here, and I'm going to move it to the opposite side. At this point I need a smaller numbered crochet hook. I sink 2.5 millimeters with a crochet hook. I take this rope to the opposite side. The reason we took it to the opposite side is that we will mount the piece we knitted with thread, like a button, on our bag with these threads. I have completed the button part here. Now I am taking 3.5 millimeters of crochet hook again, leaving a piece of our rope because we will use it to assemble. We're starting to draw the chain. I am adjusting it by eye. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's pull our chain like this. Let's see if it coincides with this point. I cut enough and remove it from my loop. I always smooth it with my hand. Look, we will assemble it this way. Let's adjust it to be exactly in the middle. After making the lock part of our bag, we take our rope. Our crochet will be 4 millimeters. We will start knitting the handle of our bag. Our rope needs to be 2 layers. That's why I leave enough rope from the end of my rope to the side. After releasing enough of my rope, I found the middle part of my rope. At this point, I will cut the end of my rope so that it is equal to the other side. I'm tying a knot here. Let's put our bag aside. Look, I have divided my rope into 2 enough pieces. Here you will need to adjust the length according to how long you want it to be. We tie the end of our rope like this. It's normal. We tied a knot like this. After this knot, we take the yarn from the ball onto our finger. The other rope will remain at the bottom. Now we placed our hook at the point where we tied the knot. We placed the rope that we took aside in this way. We put the rope we took aside on the crochet. At this point, a nest is formed. We wrapped the yarn from the ball on our finger around the crochet head and passed this rope through this slot. Now a loop is formed here again. We wrap the remaining rope at the bottom from here on the crochet hook. Once we wrap it around the crochet head and put it on our finger, we pass the thread from the ball through 2 loops. Again, we wrap the bottom thread over our crochet hook. We prepare our bag handle by passing it through 2 loops with the other rope. We wrap the bottom thread over our crochet hook. 2 loops are formed here. We got around. We are knitting a single needle here. In this way, we will extend our bag handle sufficiently. Just for some understanding, I want to knit it quickly. If you think you did it too fast, you can slow down the video or vice versa, speed it up. Now look here, I want to show you my bag handle. We will also take the stretch. We will definitely do hand ironing. In this way, it is quite thick, of course. You can also make different bag handles. This seems practical and nice to me. Now we will extend the handle of our bag in this way. Here, I have extended my bag handle enough. You can extend your handle as much as you want. After preparing it in this way, I will make sure to allow it to stretch. I'm getting the stretch by pulling it this way. Now I'm going to cut my rope enough here. Here, I will remove the end of my rope like this. Look, when I pull it, there will be no opening, etc. Now I am making a knot here, just like at the other end. Let's make it a little shorter. In this way, we prepared our bag handle. Now we will assemble it. To assemble our bag handle, I cut a piece of thread and attach it to the sewing needle. Here, first look at the point where we will sew from the back of our bag. We will start from here. We need to run our thread a little so that there are no buttons, etc. Through the intermediate points like this, we will travel a little bit by passing this rope. We're walking this tightrope a little bit until the point where we start tracking so that my wetting doesn't happen. Let's hide and strengthen our rope. Now when we come to this end, we will mount our handle to our bag by going through the gaps where we sewed the edge part. I pass my rope through the gaps like this. I assembled this side neatly and neatly. I take my handle. Look, the spike parts will appear on the outside, a piece as much as I placed here. Look here, now we will assemble it like this. After we take our yarn to this side, we have these intermediate parts of our knitting. I check whether it is balanced so that the spike points remain on top. We sink from the intermediate part. The rope we pass through our handle from here. We take it out from the same gap again by wrapping it around. Then I immediately sink through another gap. The bag is sold. I sink, I pass through it. Then I return and sink into my bag like this. By sinking this part of our tightness into these parts, then we turn around and sink into our bag. It becomes quite solid. We sew this thread now. We will hide it by passing it through the intermediate points and passing it through the spaces where there are single needles. I continue to do this process with my needle. After hiding our rope here long enough, we cut off the remaining rope. This is how we assembled the end parts of our bag handles. The inside is also very deep and useful. Your phone, cards, and keys will fit inside very easily. Now let's close the lock part and see the final version of our bag. This is how we completed our bag. I hope you like it and try it too. I wish good luck to those who will do it. Don't forget to like our video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye until we see you in the next video.